This is Unemployable, the podcast for independent workers, freelancers, DAO contributors, and other self-employed folks who want to own their employment and become self-sovereign. We may work alone, but we can be unemployable together. This episode of Unemployable is brought to you by Opolis, providing healthcare benefits and payroll for the self-employed. Join the community at opolis.co.
Hi, Rachel. It's great to meet you. Thank you for coming on the show, especially on Labor Day.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I first want to ask you about that lovely puzzle behind you. There's got to be a great story there.
Okay, yeah. So one of my neighbors, who was an elderly lady who just fell in love with my children and was like a second grandma, she loved to do puzzles. She lived by herself and just put puzzles together all the time. And so she invited me over one time, and she had just completed this one, which is of a bookshop, lots of books lining the walls, and a red leather couch with a cat and a dog and some random items. And I just fell in love with it. And she covered it in glue and mounted it on a canvas and gifted it to me.
Very nice. And we've done a few of those at home, and this is one of those forever projects where my wife's like, "You're never going to put them up." But we just have a room where puzzles are sitting on a bed and they're not glued, but it needs to be done. That looks great.
Thank you.
So the title of our show is Unemployable, which is a funny connotation to it. Most people think that it means that you're not able to find a job, but we're trying to take this word back to give it new meaning. So my question is, have you always been unemployable, or is it a new thing?
Well, I actually, when I was in college or going into college trying to pick a major, I loved learning so much. And I was a little bit intimidated about holding down a regular job. I had had some jobs before that, but it really wasn't appealing to me to be at work all the time. And I loved learning. So I decided I was going to be a student for as long as I could. And I wasn't interested in medicine, so I went in the direction of law. And I got a paralegal degree, but halfway there, my plan to be a single career woman the whole rest of my life was thwarted by a man named Matthew Newman, who stole my heart. And we got married between my second and third year. And so when I graduated from undergrad, I decided I just wanted to go ahead and enter the workforce. And I started working for a district attorney's office as a legal assistant. And from there, I went into insurance defense law and worked for a couple of insurance defense law firms. And in total, I was in the legal field for a little over 9 years before I decided to start my own business.
Very cool. And was that, what business was that?
So I am a freelance editor and indexer. My company is called Revisions by Rachel, Inc. And when I first decided I wanted to leave the legal field, it was because I had come into this profound revelation of God's grace. So I'm a Christian. I follow Jesus Christ. And I went through a season of just awakening to how much he loved me and the power of forgiveness to make someone whole and restore them. And so I wasn't really seeing a lot of that in the legal field. It was, people want justice, but even if the right thing was done in court, they were still left very broken. And so I had kind of lost the allure of the legal field, had kind of lost what it had.
Its luster. Sure.
Yeah, it was just gone. And so I was praying, and we had just moved into a new house, and I loved being home. We'd gotten a cat. It was our first pet as a married couple. And I didn't want to leave the house. I mean, the cat would act like he was crazy every time we walked toward the door. He'd just tear around the house. I don't know if you've ever had cats, but that's kind of what they do. They
I've not had a cat, and I did not know that about them.
Yeah.
You're selling it for sure.
But yeah. Yes. So I would feel bad every time I left because I was like, oh, he wants me to stay. And I just loved our new house. And so I just told the Lord, I want to do something from home. I want to work from home. I want to do something I absolutely love. And I want to be able to make a good living for my family. And at that time, it was just me and my husband. But I was making a good living as a legal assistant and a certified paralegal. And so I wanted something that would make money. And I had absolutely no direction, honestly. I couldn't even give the Lord a hint at what I wanted except for those three things. And I was just in intense, focused prayer for about a week. And I went to visit my chiropractor. And I had written something on my Facebook page a few days before comparing chiropractic care and medical care to Christians who are under the law and Christians who are living by grace, with grace and chiropractic being similar and the medical system and living under the law being similar. And so I was in the middle of an adjustment and the chiropractor said, "Hey, I really like what you wrote up on your Facebook page the other day. Do you write much?" And the moment he said, "Do you write much?" I just got this very clear statement in my spirit: "You are a freelance copy editor." And I didn't know what a freelance copy editor was. I had heard the term before, but I really had no idea what they did or what it looked like or how they got their jobs. And so I went home and I told my husband, the Lord told me today I'm a freelance copy editor. I'm ready to quit my job and start working from home. And he said, "Well, hang on here." He had a little bit more practicality than I did. And he said, "Please don't quit your job. How about you start looking into what a freelance copy editor does? See if you can find someone who's actually doing it that you can meet with in person and get a day-to-day idea of what they do. Sure. And then see what kind of training you need and start training for it." And I said, "Well, that sounds horribly, awfully boring, but it does make sense. So I guess we'll go in that direction." So I kept my full-time job for 2 years and I trained and learned how to build my website and looked into finding clients, and I started editing at no cost. And I did that for 2 years before I had enough experience and had gathered enough testimonials to post up on my website and put out my shingle and open shop.
Oh, so you were working part-time for free until you felt confident enough to start charging people? And that took about 2 years?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want to ask people to pay me unless I would be willing to pay myself. Like, knowing what I knew and what I was able to deliver, I won't charge anyone something that I wouldn't pay for me.
That makes sense. Wow. Okay, cool. Was it you're kind of answering my questions before I ask them, but a little deeper into the transition, was that first few months after you quit your full-time job? How was that transition?
Well, I was actually very pregnant at the time. So the transition wasn't necessarily so hard because my husband was still working full-time. So there wasn't pressure on me to bring in a certain amount of money. And I absolutely loved the work. And so it was really fun. It was just, setting up my home office and interacting with clients and, learning lessons in real life that you can't learn through training. So it wasn't such a hard transition, but going from full-time employment to starting my own job, that was very daunting. And there was so much information to absorb and to figure out that the way I handled it, because I was working full-time and also trying to maintain my relationship with my husband and keep our house clean and sleep, because I prioritize sleep in my life. Sure. Very, very important. You can't live your best life without getting enough sleep. So that cuts out a lot of time.
I imagine your 2-year-old has other plans.
She did for a long time. Thank God she's sleeping now. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And with my son, I went through postpartum depression really bad. And he didn't sleep more than about 45 minutes consistently for the first 10 months.
Wow.
He would sleep for about 45 minutes and wake up.
Our younger one was similar.
Yeah, it was very difficult. So what I did back then to kind of make the whole process manageable is I kept a journal. Here it is. It says, "Let your requests be made known to the Lord." And every day, I would open that up and I would write down something that
It's
I
a
did.
prayer journal.
It's a prayer journal.
Cool.
I would write down something I did that day to achieve the goal of starting my own business. And some days I was so busy, the only thing I could write down is I prayed over the business today.
Okay.
And sometimes I would write things like I got on the Oklahoma Secretary of State website and I looked at what it was going to take to reserve a name for my business. And then other times I would write, I read about or I looked at other people's websites. I found some other copy editors and looked at their websites to see what I liked and what I didn't like. So I just would break it down into little tiny bite-sized tasks and make sure that I did something, even if it was just asking God to help me. I did something toward my goal of having my own business that day.
So the Lord was obviously very helpful. What was one of the things that you struggled with the new career, the lack of income, or running a company, or running a website, or these kinds of business decisions?
I think the hardest thing for me was giving accurate quotes for how long it was going to take to complete a project and how much that project was worth.
We have one of our episodes from last season, Ditching Hourly. I highly recommend. There's a book, Ditching Hourly, it's very helpful. You're past this now, but that was a very insightful episode that we did, which instead of trying to quote like how many hours is it going to take me, figuring out how much you want to make from the project, demonstrating your worth, and then getting it done in the number of hours that is Jonathan Stark.
Okay. That sounds like it would be very helpful. And especially like in the editing world where we sometimes charge per word. That's one of the ways that we charge. Or per project. If you quote a per word or per project price, and then you're able to get it done much faster. As you get better at the job, you get quicker at it and it takes less time. And so you can still charge the same amount, but take less time for it and get a greater value.
Yes. Mm-hmm. At the height of my popularity, I was charging $1 per word.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
For real? For what kind of service?
Those are the days. I'm actually a published tourism author in China. So I used to write for a city, and then the tourism office would put a book together and then sell it in gift shops.
Awesome.
Yes, a fun side that I don't get to talk about very often. So when did you make this transition?
So I started pursuing the career in 2013. Okay. And I opened Revisions by Rachel LLC in 2015. And then last year, for the first time, I went to full-time. I worked probably a little over 45 hours a week, just editing. And my CPA advised me to move to a incorporated. So now it's Revisions by Rachel Inc. And I started that last September, I believe. So just a year ago.
So it's been about 10 years. How has the field of writing shifted since then, or is everything the same?
Well, good writing is mostly the same. You have the fiction techniques, and then you have some people who break away from them and do something extraordinarily different. But the main recommendations for good writing really hasn't changed. It's the market that has changed from mostly print books to digital books and audio books. And there used to be a stigma against self-publishing and hybrid publishing because there was this idea that if you can't get a traditional publisher to pick up your book, then you're not really a real author. But because hybrid publishing has come so far and many authors have made a very good living publishing for themselves instead of selling their rights to a traditional house, it can be really advantageous because you retain all the rights to your book and you, in essence, stay in control of it. But then now with control, with power, of course, comes great responsibility. So
Of
you
course.
carry a much heavier load of responsibility for marketing your book and getting your name out there and making sure that it's high quality, making sure that the hybrid publisher you're using is actually reputable and not scamming you.
Yeah.
And so there is that to factor in, but there's
And
a
maybe
lot.
storage space if you don't sell the book.
Yeah. So that's really the biggest difference is the majority of the authors who come to me want to self-publish. They're not even trying to traditionally publish.
One of our good friends, Kevin Owaki, has self-published. I think it's got to be like 7 or 8 books now. And I think that's one of the cornerstones of our industry, which is kind of cutting out these entrenched middlemen to go directly to the consumer, directly to the market.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to other copy editors who are just starting out right now?
I would say identify with being a copy editor before you become one. The moment you know that's what you are and what you're going to do, start acting like it. Start representing yourself in a way that you expect a copy editor would do. So I generally make sure that I'm very presentable when I meet with clients. A lot of the times, even when I do video calls, I will put on a suit jacket and a collared shirt and make sure that I'm all done up, makeup and hair. And if I meet with clients in person, I always try to wear a suit because I feel like, I'm asking you to pay me a lot of money. So I'm going to dress as though I'm worth a lot of money and present myself to you as someone who knows what they're doing and someone who is a professional. And always do everything with excellence. Don't ever take shortcuts. Don't compromise, even when nobody's looking and no one will ever know. Do everything with excellence and honesty. Never lie about anything.
Apropos of nothing, not related to your answer, it's going to sound like it's connected, but it's not connected. It was a question I wanted to ask earlier. It's related to AI because not that AI is cheating, or is it do you think of it culturally in the editing world as how has AI factored into either the editing process, or you kind of not touch it because it could then get stuck with plagiarizing? Like how has AI affected your field?
So truly, I can't speak on behalf of my field because I haven't had a lot of exposure to how AI is affecting other editors right now.
Sure.
But for me, AI is still so new, and all of the authors I'm working with right now write their own stuff. And I don't use AI for any part of the editing process. So it hasn't really affected what I'm doing a whole lot. My personal opinion of it in the industry is that it's going to be similar to digital art or running prints and selling them. It's very affordable, very inexpensive. Anyone can have one. But if you want the real thing and you want a real creative work that's done by a human being, it's going to become much more valuable. That's my opinion. And so I don't think that human writing and creativity is going to be replaced by AI. But I think that the market is going to change in that there will be a lot more AI written books than there are now.
Yeah. I use ChatGPT for a little bit of copy editing for myself now, and it's not a good writer. So I think we have some time before it catches up. But
yeah,
it probably won't ever replace humans entirely. Every new technology that has been created, people have been like, "Oh, it'll replace humans," and for the most part, humans just learn to adapt it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially for creative
away.
work, because creative works are so expressive of an individual's soul, and machines don't have souls.
That's a good takeaway. It does change the landscape. So, for example, this background that I have right now was the Zoom AI just created it because I typed in a few different things. It was like a Chinese river style, and then I typed in the word office, and it took the art and it made it the art, and then gave me an office. It made it cheaper. I didn't have to pay for that. Your husband has a stable job, and I imagine that is how you guys access healthcare.
Oh, well, so actually, my living situation has changed drastically since I started my business because my husband, Matthew, died in 2018.
Oh,
And
my.
so my son was 2 years old at the time, and I became a single mother, and my income became our only income. Now I had Social Security coming in from because my husband had worked for so many years. And thank God he had purchased a little bit of life insurance before he passed. So I had a little bit of a nest egg to kind of fall back on. So as soon as I felt like I was physically and mentally able to start working again, I went
Sure.
back into it part-time because my son was not yet in school. And so I would keep him at home. And I actually hired someone to come in part-time and watch him while I was working and when he wasn't sleeping.
Okay.
So I did that for a little while. And 3 years after my late husband passed away, I married my current husband. His name is Alex. And shortly after we got married, we got pregnant with our daughter.
Okay.
And I worked part-time during that time. And when I say part-time, I mean, like, I don't know, maybe 5 hours a week on a good week, because that pregnancy was very exhausting. I needed to sleep a lot. And I had a very supportive husband who was like, if you're tired, just sleep. Like he took care of everything. He's a very natural caregiver. And then we were living in Virginia. I moved to Virginia to marry him. And then about 2 years into the marriage, we moved back to Oklahoma, which is where we are now.
Okay.
And he was working as a car salesman, long hours, gone all the time, and wanted to be with the family. He was just getting really burnt out. And we sat down and we're talking about it at one point, and he was telling me, I'm just really burnt out on working all day, every day. And I said, well, I'm really burnt out at being mom all day, every day. So how about you come be stay-at-home dad, and I'll be career mom, and
Nice.
we'll see how it goes. And he absolutely loved the idea. Loved it. And he's actually much more patient with the children and easygoing than I am. I'm much more work product driven, and
Okay.
I don't get as much satisfaction over mothering so much as I do over putting out projects. And so it was kind of a difficult season for me. And he's doing great. He loves being with the kids all day and doing fun things and making all the meals and managing the house. And so I come in and just hammer out projects, and it works for us. So that's where we're at now. I'm the main income provider. We purchased a Tesla a couple years ago, a Tesla Model 3.
Oh,
and
cool.
my husband is also very entrepreneurial minded. And so he started his own part-time business while he's doing the stay-at-home dad thing. He also operates a high-end chauffeur business with our Tesla. So he worked as a chauffeur in Virginia for a very prestigious company and learned all of the best practices, and came here to the Tulsa area where we're at, and didn't really see anything comparable here to what he was doing in Virginia. And so after he left the car business and I was carrying the main income, he was like, hey, I want to start this business. And so when he gets calls to go drive somebody to the airport or to a hotel or to a doctor's appointment or something, I just take a break from my editing and take over with the kids. And he goes, does the job, and comes back, and we switch back.
Cool. That's nice coverage that you guys have where you're able to flexibly handle the kids. I actually, before getting into this, I worked at Lyft for 3 years, so I'm very familiar with rideshare and the competition with private chauffeurs and the double dipping. A lot of them will also drive for Uber and Lyft, like the premium, and it's like a mix of. We don't have to get into that. Okay, so back to the original question. So how do you guys access healthcare if neither of you is a W-2 for someone else? You're both self-employed.
Right. So we use a company called MediShare, which is not actual insurance. It's a little bit different. So I'm very interested to hear more about what you guys do, because I know you do offer insurance.
Sure.
And MediShare is a very niche thing that's only offered to people of the Christian faith, actually. And you basically all pool your money monthly. It's called a monthly share. And then the company pays out for medical expenses to people who are in need. So it works a little different from insurance. Yeah.
Cool.
But it's not
That's
for
good to know.
everybody. You know, I
Sure.
mean, obviously.
Got
So
it.
tell me about what you guys do.
Sure. So Opolis is a member-owned employment cooperative. And what that means is it's similar to, but not like a union, in that we bundle all of our members together into a single plan. And that makes it so that we can operate as a very large company without our individual members actually having to be employees of a very large company.
Yeah.
And so when you're an independent, either you meet like a private broker, or what most people do is they go to the state exchange and they'll go to their healthcare.gov and they'll try to find a plan. But what you're doing is you're negotiating one-on-one with the government. So you're getting whatever the like tax credit that you have based off of your income level. But what they're going to do is they're going to charge you based off of like your age banding. So if you're older, you're going to pay more the more kids you have. But it can be much more expensive if you have some of the things that a typical insurance company would deem as not highly desirable. And so what we do is we take all of the people in our group and we bundle them together. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Look at our healthcare plans.
Okay. So you guys use Cigna, it looks like?
Yeah, we do. Cigna, and it's managed by this Imagine 360.
Okay. Great. So this basically, so it's like if you were to work for an employer who had a bunch of employees and they offered you a benefits package, this is going to be comparable to that.
Yeah, it should be comparable both in price and in quality to like a Fortune 500 company. If you're working for a startup that's not subsidizing your plans, this should be more competitive. If you're going off the exchange, especially in some of the states where things are more expensive, like California and New York, you should see pretty steep savings. I am generally on the premium high deductible health plan. That's my favorite. When my wife was pregnant with our second, I switched over to the premium copay plan because that was a little bit more advantageous for having a kid. We hit that max pretty quickly, and then it was a little cheaper for that year. But now that we don't have a very expensive birth in our future, we switch back to the high deductible, and we just throw money into our HSA account every month.
Well, let me ask you this, and you may
Sure.
not know the answer to this, but I'm curious because both of my children we had at home with a midwife, and the first one, the insurance company I had was going to pay part of the cost,
Okay.
but they ended up not paying because he was born too early, and that part of the benefit didn't start until like a few days later after he was born. So I didn't actually get to take advantage of that. But the insurance, I had Medicaid, I think, that's for my second child, and they wouldn't pay anything. Do you have any idea if Cigna covers any part of home birth or like birthing at a birthing center?
I have not looked that up.
Sorry, I threw you a curveball.
No, it's okay. I like being asked questions that I haven't been asked before.
Oh, in the chat section, Micah just told us you can cover at-home births, and he's working on a solution to cover it better.
Excellent.
That's
The
great.
thing that I would add to that is with Imagine 360 specifically, you want to like call ahead and work with the broker to like make sure that things are covered. And so when you call and you tell them this is my plan, they'll work with you to figure out what is covered and what isn't covered. We have a concierge that is very helpful.
Okay. It's all about medical billing, Micah says.
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah, it is. And that first one, like I can't speak to whether the insurance company wronged you or not. That sounds kind of shady.
It was part of the agreement. Yeah. It was like, I think my husband had just gotten a new job, and it was like a month.
Oh, inside their waiting period?
Yeah, it was inside their waiting period, like 2 or 3 days before the benefit started.
Yeah. So like I think waiting periods are a scam. And you can hold me to that. It's like it's HR gobbledygook to try to so what they do is they'll create these 60 and 90-day waiting periods to make sure that you're not taking a job just for the insurance benefits.
Okay.
And then you quit. But what ended up happening 20 years after the creation of this type of policy is you've created a workforce that's just kind of expecting to not have insurance the first 2 months that they take a new job, which is just entirely unacceptable for the leader of the free world, this like shining country on the hill that's supposed to take care of its citizens. Like,
right.
the nation, our culture is all about work. But the first 2 months that you are working, you're just SOL if something happens. Like
Yeah,
that's not
exactly.
ideal. So
So
Opolis
this,
has no waiting periods. We don't play those HR games. Like I mean, for one, you're self-employed. Like you're working for yourself. So it'd be essentially your company offering you health insurance the first month that you're eligible. And so right now it's September 2nd. So anybody who signs up would start their benefits on October 1st. So we start people on the first of every month.
that's great.
It'd be like your hire date would be October 1st, and your benefits should start October 1st. There's
Yeah.
no waiting.
So
Rolled to
speaking
November
of
1st.
money, like this just kind of sparked back to your other question. What
Sure.
advice would I give someone who has decided to become unemployable? Is try to have a nest egg to fall back on for months that you might not bring in as much as you think you would.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good piece of advice. One of the first people I onboarded was a real estate agent who he said like he'll sell a house in January and make like 40 grand. And he goes, but sometimes I often won't sell another house until like May or June. What do I do for those months? And the easy answer is don't pay yourself 40 grand in January.
Right?
You can spread it out. That's perfectly acceptable. And so what a lot of our members do is they'll set their salary somewhere between 75, 120,000 for the year and pay themselves a much more reasonable amount each month. So if you make
Yeah.
40 grand in commissions on one sale, spread it out and make it, 5,000 a month, and that's going to last you well past when you sell your next house.
Yeah, for sure.
And that sort of discipline for spreading out your money actually creates a better saving situation for a lot of people because then they're not feeling this. And with artists, and I don't know if you consider yourself an artist, but I consider writers to be artists. In the art world, there's a very strong propensity to this like feast or famine mentality. The
Right.
whole like struggling artist persona where your best work comes out when you're, close to the rock bottom of your savings. And this kind of the entire paradigm just goes away because when you sell that one commission, you can spread it out, and having to log in every or twice a month to pay my Opolis invoice has made it so that I've become better at budgeting. Like I know that invoice is coming so that my business can pay me,
Yeah.
and I have become a better saver because I've been forced to.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been very blessed to not really experience a very fluctuating feast or famine. When I have authors come to me, I project out to when the project I'm currently on is going to be over, and I start filling in my calendar. Like I don't ever stop filling in my calendar
Yeah.
for authors who come, and so generally I keep a pretty full calendar. And then once in a while, when I find myself with no billable work to do, I've got all kinds of non-billable work that I've, been keeping a list of just in the background. I'll get to it when I don't have something that'll earn me money. And so
Yeah.
I stay busy even when I don't have a project, like I'm at work working. Okay, so let me ask you another question about Opolis. I'm actually on this podcast as the copy editing expert for NAIWE. And Opolis and NAIWE just recently became like affiliates or
Mhm.
had some kind of connection here. So tell me kind of what the benefit for the NAIWE members, which NAIWE stands for the National Association of Independent Writers and Editors. So for people who join NAIWE, who now have this advantage of Opolis being kind of hand in hand, tell me what that benefit is there.
Okay, so we have a new partnership with NAIWE, the goal of which is to provide our service to any NAIWE members who need it. So we have a white glove service with some great membership stewards who are here to answer any and all questions that the independent writers and editors of NAIWE have for successfully becoming unemployable or for self-employing themselves and being able to access the benefit stack that you would get if you worked for a newspaper or a publishing office. And I'm seeing from Micah in the chat here that we are offering $400 off the one-time membership fee.
Oh,
So
that's
when
great.
you join Opolis, there's a membership fee of $497. And for listening to this webinar, you get $400 off. So it's only $97.
That's great. That's great savings. Thank you for letting me know
That is a great savings.
that.
If I wasn't a member yet, I would join using that savings. It is just like a Costco membership. So you're paying up front, but the services that you're using, you're getting way more than that 1% worth of value back.
Yeah.
Okay, so with our growing memberships combining, a lot of our members are not in the writing and editing ecosystem. And so this provides an opportunity for your members to provide our members with services and vice versa. We've got a lot of software developers and website designers who may be able to help with that side of the house. And we've got a lot of software companies and real estate agents who may need help with copy editing and writing. And our goal is to grow a very large ecosystem of people who are able to help each other.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. And NAIWE is really focused on career building for writers and editors who are wanting to really make a living at it and just diversify the services that they offer and be able to bring in a steady income. And so NAIWE actually has 44 different specific member benefits listed on the website that listeners can check out at NAIWE.com.
Oh, wow. What's the I'm a little bit of a writer. What's the TLDR? What's the short of why should I join?
Exposure and resources. So you're going to have your own member website where you can blog and publish some of your writing and get seen, and also include maybe your author website on your blog so you have another place people can access it. And then you're going to have the opportunity for webinars, and there's a monthly newsletter. There's a online, what is the word? Where you make connections with other people, networking, online networking with other creative professionals, and you can learn from their experiences and ask questions. And so, cool. It's like a community.
So is it, you mentioned fiction earlier. Is it more long form, or like, are there journalists who join, and is it any kind of writing?
Yeah, it's very diverse. Any kind of writing, even like screenwriting. And I mean, writing for China, that you could do that. You can join and write for China. I mean, if you write and people pay you, you can. But yeah, so what do you write now? Do you write anything?
Mostly blog and like Medium content for some of the organizations that I work with. So we do a lot of really cool things, but we don't tell people about it often. And so you have to write these blog posts so that, everyone knows what you're working on. There's just so much to digest, and there's so many things happening out in the world that unless there's a concise and consistent apparatus of Medium to consume, it just gets lost. For example, there's a very large conference that we help host. Opolis is actually one of the founders of it. ETH Denver. It's a very large conference in February. And the board that governs us is having elections in the next month. And we need to find as many of the constituents as possible to go vote. And so it's important to push content anywhere that they might find it so they can participate.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, consider joining NAIWE.
Okay. Is it expensive?
It is not expensive. Now you've asked me a hard question. I can certainly find the answer for you real quick. Well, let's see here. Join NAIWE.
I found it. Okay, so it's $99 for the first year, and then $99 for each subsequent year.
There you go. Perfect.
Or you can get a lifetime membership for $1,000. Okay, so as we wrap up, where can our audience find you?
So I'm online at revisionsbyrachel.com, and email me at editor@revisionsbyrachel.com. I'm not hard to find. I don't know if I said, but my husband's business is called Bradley Transportation. I'll just plug that a little bit if anyone's looking for a high-end chauffeur in the Tulsa area. If they're planning for a big writers conference or something, and they need a fancy schmancy ride to the hotel,
then you can call Bradley Transportation to have a a Tesla Model 3 picked you up.
Yeah.
And I'm 0x Joshua. You guys know where to find me. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Rachel. This was a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Appreciate it.
As always, to the unemployable community, I'd love to hear your reactions and thoughts to the episode. You can tweet at the show at Opolis with the hashtag unemployablepod. At Unemployable, I'll always be looking ahead to see what's on the horizon and bringing you top strategies for thriving in the new economy with freedom, flexibility, and peace of mind. I hope you got a lot out of this episode and the platforms that are empowering the independent workforce. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast player. Your ratings and reviews help other unemployables find the show. Until next time, I'm your host, Joshua Lapidus, a founding steward of Opolis, co-founder of SporkDAO, chronic freelancer, and tenured professor here at Unemployable University.